Colorado Territory, 1883. They left her to freeze. The iron cage stood in the middle of Frosthaven, like a warning carved in metal. Thick bars, rusted hinges, a padlock that had not been opened in days. Inside it, Eleanor Price was folded into herself, knees pressed to her chest, arms wrapped tight as if she could hold her own warmth together by force alone. Her crime was poverty. The sheriff had said it loudly, proudly, so the whole town could hear. Vagrant, no work, no family, no place here. The sentence came without a trial, without questions, without mercy. For days of winter, so cruel it burned. For days of hunger that stopped hurting and turned numb. For days of thirst that left her tongue swollen and useless in her mouth. For days of people walking past her like she was already dead. Some crossed the street to avoid looking. Others stared. Children were the worst. A group of boys stopped in front of the cage, boots crunching in the snow. One of them wound his arm back and let the snowball fly. It struck Eleanor's cheek and exploded into ice and dirt. Another followed, then another. "Bet I can hit her eye," one laughed. Eleanor turned her face toward the bars and waited. She counted them, because counting gave her something to hold on to. 9 snowballs. They left when it stopped being fun. A woman passed with a basket of bread, steam curling from a cloth. The smell hit Eleanor so hard her stomach twisted. "Please," she whispered. Her lips cracked as the word escaped. "Just a piece. I don't need much." The woman pulled her shawl tighter and walked faster. The cage was doing exactly what it was meant to do. It reminded the town who mattered and who didn't. By the 5th morning, Eleanor wasn't sure she could stand if the door were opened. Her body felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. Cold had settled into her bones, quiet and heavy. She was drifting when she heard it. Wheels, not the usual quick roll of wagons passing through, but a slower sound, a hesitant stop, then voices, children's voices. "Papa, look. Papa, why is that lady locked up?" Eleanor lifted her head with effort. A wagon stood just beyond the square. A tall man climbed down, his boots dark with road dust and snow. His coat was worn but well kept. His hair was dark, streaked with gray at the temples. 6 children sat in the wagon bed. 6. 5 girls and a boy, their eyes wide, faces pale in the cold. The man approached the cage slowly. He crouched in front of Eleanor, so their eyes were level. And for the first time in 4 days, someone truly looked at her. Not past her, not through her. At her. "How long?" he asked quietly. Eleanor swallowed. "For days." His jaw tightened. "They give you food?" She shook her head. "Water?" "No." Something dark moved behind his eyes. He stood and turned toward the sheriff's office, where Sheriff Holt leaned against the doorframe, watching with a crooked smile. "This you doing?" the man called. Holt laughed. "Sure is. Town's cleaner already." The man's hands curled slowly into fists. "Open it," he said. Holt snorted. "Or what?" The man stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. "Or you'll find out what kind of man I am when someone hurts the helpless." The square went silent. The children watched. The wind howled. And for the first time since the cage closed around her, Eleanor felt something stir inside her chest. Hope. The silence in Frosthaven felt heavier than the cold. Sheriff Hope pushed himself off the doorframe slowly, boots scraping against the wooden planks. He looked the stranger up and down with open disdain. "You don't tell me how to run my town," Holt said. "Especially not on your first day here." The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't move closer either. That somehow made it worse. "I asked how long she's been in there," he said. "You answered. Now I'm telling you to open the cage." Holt laughed, sharp and ugly. "She's a lesson. Folks like her need reminding they don't belong." Eleanor's vision blurred. She expected the man to turn away like everyone else had. She braced herself for that familiar disappointment. But he didn't leave. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out folded bills. "How much?" he asked. Holt blinked. "What?" "How much to unlock the cage?" The sheriff's eyes gleamed. "You buying yourself a problem?" "I'm buying her freedom." The children in the wagon leaned forward, Breath held. Holt spat into the snow. $20. The man didn't hesitate. He counted the money out carefully and held it up. Open it. Holt took the bills, sneering. Don't come crying when she steals from you. He crossed the square and jammed the key into the lock. The metal groaned as the padlock snapped open. The door swung outward. Eleanor tried to move. Her legs buckled instantly. She would have fallen face first into the snow if the man hadn't stepped forward and caught her. One arm went around her back, the other beneath her knees. She weighed almost nothing. He lifted her as if she were a child. I've got you, he said quietly. You're not alone anymore. Eleanor felt warm for the first time in days. Real warmth. She tried to speak, but her throat closed and a broken sound escaped instead. The man carried her to the wagon. The children scrambled to make space, already pulling blankets from beneath their feet. She's freezing, one girl said urgently. I know, the man replied. The smallest child pressed close to Eleanor, slipping a mittened hand into hers. It's okay, the child whispered. Papa helps people. Papa. The word cracked something open inside Eleanor. The man climbed onto the driver's seat, reins snapping lightly. We're leaving. You don't get to, Hope began. You got paid, the man said without looking back. We're done. The wagon rolled forward, wheels crunching over frozen ground. Eleanor watched the cage disappear behind them, smaller and smaller until it vanished entirely. What's your name? One of the children asked softly. Eleanor, she managed. I'm Clara, the girl said. That's Ruth, Amos, June, Lila, and Ben. The man glanced over his shoulder. I'm Thomas Calder. The name settled over her like a promise. As the town faded into the distance, Eleanor closed her eyes. For the first time since Frosthaven had decided she was nothing, someone had chosen her, and that choice was going to change everything. The wagon moved steadily west, away from Frosthaven and everything it had tried to erase. Eleanor drifted in and out of consciousness. Every jolt of the wheels reminded her how weak she was, but the blankets wrapped around her body and the small hands holding hers anchored her to the present. Warmth returned slowly, painfully, like blood waking up frozen limbs. Drink this, a girl's voice said gently. A tin cup touched her lips. Eleanor sipped carefully. The water tasted like iron and hope. Slow, the girl added. Papa says slow is safer. Papa. Thomas Calder sat tall on the driver's bench, eyes fixed on the road ahead. He hadn't looked back since leaving town, but his grip on the reins was steady, protective. This was not a man who acted on impulse. This was a man who decided, and then followed through. Why did you stop? Eleanor asked quietly. Thomas didn't answer right away. The wind carried his breath away before it could reach her. My wife would have stopped, he said finally. She never passed suffering. Eleanor nodded, understanding more than words could explain. They reached his land near dusk. A modest homestead stood against the open prairie, smoke rising from the chimney like a signal of survival. The children jumped down, already moving with purpose, gathering wood, opening doors, bringing light inside. Thomas carried Eleanor again when her legs refused to cooperate. Inside, the house was warm, real warm. Fire crackled in the hearth. A pot simmered on the stove. The normal sounds of life filled the space. Sit, Thomas said gently, guiding her to a chair near the fire. The heat hurt. Tears slipped down Eleanor's face without warning. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, he replied. You're safe. The children moved like a practice unit. One brought soup. Another fetched clean clothes. The smallest one, Lila, sat cross-legged on the floor near Eleanor's feet, watching her like a guardian. You can stay, Thomas said after a moment, as long as you need. Eleanor looked up sharply. I'll work. I won't be a burden. I didn't offer charity, he said firmly. I offered shelter. That night, Eleanor slept in a real bed. She woke once panicked, expecting iron bars. Instead, she found wool blankets, a wooden ceiling, and silence that didn't threaten her. In the morning, Frosthaven felt like a distant nightmare. Days passed. Strength returned slowly. Eleanor learned the rhythm of the household. Meals, chores, laughter. She helped where she could, mended clothes, read to the children, shared stories she had long buried. But peace never lasts without challenge. A letter arrived on the 7th day. Thomas read it once. Then again, his jaw hardened. "They're asking about you," he said quietly. Eleanor's blood turned cold. "Who?" "A man named Marcus Hale." Her hands trembled. "He won't stop. He never does." Thomas folded the letter and met her gaze. "Then neither will I." Outside, the wind shifted, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the past began to follow. The letter changed everything. Thomas burned in the hearth, watching the paper curl and blacken, but the words remained. Names like Marcus Hale did not vanish with flame. Men like that never did. That night, Thomas gathered the children at the table. "Listen carefully," he said. "Nothing bad has happened, but something might." Clara straightened. "Is it because of Eleanor?" "Yes." Eleanor's chest tightened. "I'll leave," she said quickly, "before trouble reaches your door." Thomas's eyes met hers, steady and unyielding. "You don't run because someone threatens you. That's how they win." "But they'll come," she whispered, "and they don't stop. Then they'll find something new waiting for them." The children didn't cry. They didn't argue. They listened. They trusted him. 2 days later, hoofbeats echoed across the open land. 3 riders appeared at the edge of the property, dust clinging to their coats like a warning. Thomas stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, not raised, but ready. Eleanor stood behind the door, heart hammering. The tallest rider dismounted. "We're looking for a woman," he called. "Name's Eleanor Price." Thomas didn't move. "You won't find her here." The man smiled thinly. "Funny thing is, we know she is." Thomas's voice dropped. "Turn around." The rider's smile vanished. "You think you can stop us?" "I know I can." The rifle came up. The wind froze. Behind Thomas, the children stood silent, watching their father become something else, something fierce. The riders backed away. "This isn't over," one warned. Thomas didn't reply. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. "I never wanted this," she said softly. Thomas sat beside her. "Neither did I. But here we are. What if next time there are more?" "Then we stand taller." The next morning, Thomas began preparations. Reinforced doors. Hidden routes. A plan. Eleanor watched him, realizing something terrifying and beautiful. Someone was fighting for her, not because she belonged to him, but because she mattered. At dusk, Eleanor stood on the porch, looking west. For years, she had run from shadows. Now, she felt something new rise within her. Resolve. If the past was coming, she would meet it standing. The riders returned at sundown. This time, there were 5. Eleanor saw them first from a kitchen window, dark shapes against a sky bruised purple and red. Her breath caught, but she didn't scream. She didn't run. She walked to the door. Thomas was already there, rifle in hand, coat on, eyes sharp. One look at her told him everything. "They're back," she said. "I know." The children gathered silently, fear flickering across young faces they tried to keep brave. Thomas crouched before them. "You remember what we practiced?" Clara nodded. Amos swallowed hard but nodded too. "You stay inside, no matter what you hear." "And Eleanor?" Lila asked. Thomas looked at Eleanor, then back at the children. "She stays with me." That mattered more than Eleanor could explain. The riders stopped short of the porch. The same tall man dismounted, his smile gone now, replaced by irritation. "You've had your warning," he said. "Hand her over." Eleanor stepped forward. Thomas's arm shot out, blocking her. "You touch her, you answer to me." The rider laughed. "You're one man." "So was I when I bought this land," Thomas replied, still standing. The rider's hand drifted toward his gun. Eleanor's heart thundered, but her voice surprised even herself. "I'm not going with you," she said clearly. "Not today. Not ever." The man sneered. "You don't get to decide." Thomas raised a rifle. A gunshot cracked the air, warning fire, splitting dirt inches from the rider's boot. Silence exploded across the field. The riders froze. "You leave now," Thomas said, voice iron. or you don't leave at all. One rider hesitated. Another looked back toward the road. Courage, Eleanor realized, was contagious. The leader spat into the dirt. This isn't finished. No, Thomas said. It is. The riders mounted and turned away, vanishing into the dark. Only then did Eleanor's knees give out. Thomas caught her. I was so afraid, she whispered. And you still stood, he said. That's what courage is. Inside, the children clung to them, relief spilling out in tears and shaky laughter. That night, Eleanor didn't dream of cages. She dreamed of doors standing open. Morning brought hoofbeats again, but this time they were different. A single rider, a badge. The marshal dismounted, papers in hand. Thomas called her. That's me. I've been tracking Marcus Hale for months, the marshal said. Your stand last night gave me what I needed. Eleanor felt her breath return. He's finished, the marshal added. All of them are. When the rider left, the prairie felt quieter than it ever had. Thomas turned to Eleanor. You're free. She shook her head, tears falling. I've been free since you opened that cage. He didn't deny it. As the sun rose over the land, Eleanor realized something had changed forever. She was no longer running. She was home. Spring came quietly. Snow melted into soft earth. The wind lost its bite. The land around Thomas Calder's homestead breathed again, and so did Eleanor. The marshal kept his word. Marcus Hale was captured 2 weeks later, his power broken not by force alone, but by exposure. Names were spoken, papers signed, truth dragged into the light, where it could no longer hide. Eleanor watched it all from a distance. For the first time, the past no longer chased her. Life settled into something gentle. Mornings began with shared breakfasts. Days were filled with work that mattered, planting, mending, teaching the children to read by the fire in the evenings. Laughter returned in pieces, tentative at first, then full. One afternoon, Eleanor found Thomas repairing the fence line. You didn't have to do all this, she said quietly. Thomas rested his hands on the post and looked at her. I know. Then why did you? He considered the question. Because my children needed to see what it looks like when someone stands up, and because you needed to see what it looks like when someone doesn't walk away. Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes. Weeks passed. Strength returned fully now, not just to her body, but to her spirit. She stopped flinching at footsteps, stopped waking in the night, expecting iron bars. One evening, Clara approached Eleanor with a question she'd clearly been holding for a long time. Are you going to leave someday? Eleanor knelt to meet her eyes. Only if you want me to. Clara shook her head fiercely. We don't. Neither did Eleanor. Thomas said nothing that night, but later, as the house slept, he spoke. You've already chosen us, he said softly. You stay because you want to, not because you have nowhere else to go. Yes, Eleanor replied. That's exactly why. The words hung between them, full of meaning. Summer arrived. The land flourished. So did the family. Eleanor began teaching other women nearby. Sewing, reading, writing letters they'd never been able to send. Stories spread. People came not for charity, but for dignity. The cage in Frost Haven became a rumor, a shame, something spoken of quietly. 1 year later, Eleanor stood on the porch at sunset, watching the children run through tall grass, free and loud and alive. Thomas joined her. You're smiling, he said. I finally understand something, she replied. What's that? I wasn't saved the day you opened the cage. I was saved the moment I believed I was worth saving. Thomas nodded. That's the hardest part. She turned to him. You growled. Open it. Now. Do you remember? He smiled faintly. I do. That sound changed my life. No, he corrected gently. Your courage did. I just gave it a door. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Eleanor felt something settle deep within her. She had not survived to hide. She had survived to live. And this life built from kindness, choice, and quiet bravery, was proof that even the coldest cages could be broken, not by anger alone, but by love that refused to look away.